to the Port City Plate Podcast, presented by Bienville Bites Food Tour. The Port City Plate Podcast, serving up the food, history, and people of Mobile, Alabama for people who love the Port City. I'm your host, Chris Andrews, and another exciting episode of the podcast today. I think everybody in Mobile is probably familiar with Mobile's most luxurious institution, and that's the Battle House Hotel. But inside the Battle House, you've got, really, I think it's an amazing food and drink lineup. You've got Cain Cafe, Royal Street Tavern, Mobile's only AAA Four Diamond award-winning restaurant. That's the Trellis Room. And Tony Reynolds is the executive chef at the Battle House, and so he's responsible for a lot of the menu creation at these fine places and a lot more, and so I'm excited to get into it. Tony?
Hey Chris, thank you so much for having me here.
Yes, sir. Excited. So talk to me. Tell me about growing up. You know, like what was young Tony Reynolds doing?
Oh, man, how much time do we have?
All day.
I'll give you the condensed version, I guess. But so I don't know that I have a terribly unique path. Well, it's unique to me, I think, but it's worth telling. So at a kind of young age, I figured out that cooking was probably going to be my path, and I arrived at that fact pretty early on, in that both of my parents were very hard workers, and they're both pharmacists. And it would happen that my mom would often, she was the cook of the family for sure, but she worked nights at the hospitals, and my dad would come home after a long day, and he wouldn't really feel like cooking for us. And so I took it upon myself, for whatever reason, to just pick it up. And in those days, I made simple stuff like spaghetti and stuff that like kids can make without any prior training. But I gave it a whirl, and I got into it, and there were a lot of failures, but I kept wanting to come back, and I also wanted to eat well, but that's a side effect. But in those days, there wasn't YouTube, at least not quite yet. There was PBS and Julia Child and Emerald and all those guys, and I would, I'd pay attention to them and see what they were doing and try to pick up some stuff. And just I remember fondly, trying out stuff, and if it worked out, great. If it didn't, we still had a meal.
So a little trial and error.
It was a success. Kind of fast forward through that, I had picked up that, I guess you could call it a hobby, a necessity, whatever it was at the time. But I got older, and it came time to graduate high school. And, my parents, just like many of us, they stressed, go to college, get your degree, whatever that is. And I just remember being 18, 19 and thinking, what does that mean? Just very confused. And so I went to the University of Texas. By the way, I'm from Dallas, Texas originally, and went to the University of Texas, and I wouldn't say I fell in with the wrong crowd, just not the right one. I probably partied way too much and didn't focus on my studies, but also, if I'm honest, I wasn't interested in what I had started on. It was, when you start in a university without a true plan, you're in liberal arts or something like that. No knock against liberal arts, but nothing specific. It was all just generic. And so I kind of fell into college life, and I disregarded my studies and didn't take it very seriously. It came to a turning point where I needed to either figure that out or do something else entirely. So got really to talking to myself, and I thought back to, hey, Tony, what do you really want to do for a career? What do you want to, what do you want to make of yourself? And I knew, selfishly, I wanted to have one of those cool jobs, where you talk to someone at a party and they're like, oh, you do that? That's awesome. But also, in the back of my mind, I knew that I wanted to cook. And so after some self-searching and some difficult conversations with my parents, by the way, very supportive with that, I decided to leave the University of Texas and go to what it was called Texas Culinary Academy at the time. It was a Le Cordon Bleu program. And off the bat, that was the best decision I've probably made in my life, at least top 5 for sure.
Awesome.
Went to that program and had the fortune of working with some master chefs as instructors at the time. For those of you who don't know, master chefs, there's a handful in the world, and to get that accreditation is pretty difficult. So I was lucky enough to be under their tutelage. But anyway, through a good support network and good instructors and a good program, I excelled in school and was top of my class and that kind of thing, and met some really good friends. Those friends and I kind of completed our degrees, and as a part of the degree program, you had to do what was called an externship, which meant you were shipped out to a restaurant of your choice, or whoever would accept you, and worked there for I think it was a 90-day period just to get some experience, and so they could check a box and say that you've had some real world experience. Well, this group of buddies and me, we went to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, of all places. So here I was, a Texan. Dallas weather is not too dissimilar from Mobile weather. Texan being shipped off to a ski resort, of all places. So talk about a fish out of water. Although I had been away at college, that's a few hours away in Austin to Dallas. But when you are suddenly 20 hours away, that's a big difference. So that was my first time kind of truly away from home and on my own, also in a completely different climate. I remember all the altitude sickness and just getting...
That's a real thing, ain't it?
Absolutely. Getting, accustomed to that kind of weather. But anyway, I was supposed to stay... My first job in the industry was at a Sheraton hotel. It was a ski resort right on the mountain. And through the program, they had us on a rotation initially where I just started off as like the cafeteria cook, and then kind of got to experience banquet prep and worked in the restaurant a little bit. Anyway, that program lasted, like I said, about 3 months, 90 days. A lot of my other buddies said, this wasn't for me, but I ended up loving it. The hotel life, the kind of ski resort culture, and as a result, I ended up staying 3 years. Found some really good experience there, and just kind of fell in love with the hotel in general and how that works. At first, I was put into like a banquet cook position where you're just prepping huge amounts of food all day long and putting out these parties. Not something that they necessarily go over in culinary school. You're kind of gearing up for restaurant work. Banquets is a whole different animal, different methodology, and a lot more precision, that kind of thing. And I gravitated towards that. Kind of once that time, expired, I made a decision to come back to Texas, and I landed my first true chef job. Again, another hotel. You're going to see that's a theme here. I enjoy my hotels. It's a truly unique experience. This was at a downtown Dallas hotel. It was a Westin at the time, and I was named chef de cuisine, which was at the time over the restaurant in that hotel. This was my first, experience leading a crew and coming up with menu ideas. That was a true kind of growth experience for sure. Anyway, long story short, that hotel was sold and changed flags and management, and then I became front of the house manager with that new company. And so here I am. In school, I said I was going to be a super culinary, and I, was always going to be back of the house, quote unquote, and be on Food Network, all this stuff. That's what I had in my mind. But now I'm suddenly wearing suits, not in the kitchen anymore, managing the restaurant, and I've always said that was a great kind of experience for me in that, if you spend any time in working in restaurants, you typically have the back of the house and the front of the house. A lot of times behind the scenes, they don't speak the same language, and there's a little bit of strife. I've always said that because of that experience, I've been able to marry the two and translate, if you would, how each one of them works in harmony. So that's been very helpful in my career. But during that time, I think this is the origin story where we figure out how I get to Mobile. So that's coming. In Dallas, I've met my lovely wife, Melissa. She's a Mobile native, and she's a owner of a ladies' boutique here in town called Shop Rise. But she was on a journey to find her path in Dallas at the time, and we met and swept up, got married, and then we decided, hey, let's go try our hat in Orlando, of all places.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of traveling across the country at this point, just hitting all the spots, and found a hotel in Celebration, Florida. If you're not familiar, Celebration was a creation of Disney. It's a little town, all said, that they made. It's not related anymore, but throughout there's a lot of Disney touches. Anyways, that was a great experience. And then my wife and I, Melissa, kind of said, Orlando may not be for us. We're missing friends, we're missing family. Orlando is great, but it's just not our flavor, if you will. So we made the decision to come back to Mobile, where she is from, be with family, friends, and just make a run for it here. And that's kind of where we are.
Nice.
Fun story, and we'll get into the Battle House here in a little bit. But we were married down the road at the Bragg, and our room block for our guests was at the Battle House at the time. I'd always heard stories about the Battle House and how prominent and how great it is, and I had no idea where my future was truly headed. I mean, nobody really does. But at the time, we were taking my groomsmen photos, and I had the idea of, with the guys, hey, let's go hop behind the kitchen line over there in Trellis and just take some photos. And I need to find those because that would be really fun. But this was before, I had anything to do with the Battle House. Yeah, right. And so I've got photos behind the Trellis Room, all in a tuxedo and, with my boys. And anyway, that would be fun to find. But so we came back, and, at first there wasn't a Battle House position available when we moved here. And I kind of knew after all the stories and, what you hear around town, Battle House is the place to be if you're in this line of work. And unfortunately, that just wasn't the case. And I was thinking, oh man, it's going to be years before anything opens up. So let me just kind of get my foot in the door somewhere. So I made the decision to kind of start a sales role at the Mobile Marriott. And again, another unexpected time in my career where here I am out of the kitchen, but gaining some good experience that applies, to anything basically. Anyway, so at that hotel, we were without, executive chef for a few months, maybe 6. And I ended up, just because I had the knowledge, like, not necessarily filling in, but I would be able to answer food questions to the sales team that I was working with at the time. And anyway, it kind of dawned on me that, hey, we can't fill this position. Why don't I do it? We have a saying in the culinary world: if you ever try to leave the kitchen, it'll bring you back. Yeah. And it sure does. And anyway, I say this is God's way of trying to put me back in the right place. But I applied for the position, did a cook test, and was given the role. as executive chef was to take over in a couple weeks. Well, guess what happened in between those couple of weeks?
It's got to be COVID, right?
Yes, sir. COVID happened. We got the mass layoff, and before I could even order my, white chef jacket, you're getting cut.
Dang.
Yeah. This was, a lot of our fates that we had to endure out there. Fortunately, that company, that hotel, made a decision to bring me back as executive chef, and that was, I'll say, both a challenge and very fun. It was a challenge because in the beginning it was just me in this big hotel kitchen by yourself, doing all the tasks that probably a team of 20 or so wouldn't accomplish. But that's what you had to do when we were all just trying to get it started. And it's rare in a hotel that, if you think about it, hotels never close, they never stop, they're always open. So the time to truly get in there and reorganize and clean like you want to and get your equipment sorted, that never gets to happen all at once, let's say. So that was a good opportunity to go in there and just throw stuff away, which is immensely satisfying. But anyway, business came back bit by bit, and we were doing well. And all of a sudden, just for fun, I always pay attention to LinkedIn and Indeed, and just to see what's going on, knowing that my ultimate goal was to get to the Battle House in some capacity. One day, executive sous chef popped up at the Battle House. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. This is it. I'm going to go for it. This is my chance. And I did. And after some nerves and some summoning of courage, I got in there and gave a good interview and gave a good tasting, and kind of the rest now is history. I've been there for about 3 years almost.
Nice, yeah.
And
so you had to prepare a dish in your interview?
Absolutely. So that's pretty common once you get into the management level, cooking interviews. So one of the most difficult things, by the way, on this planet is to go into somebody else's kitchen where you know nothing, where it is, how things work, all the little quirks of the kitchen that you just know, over time. Go in there on one day and prep, and then execute and present
in front of guys like Marty.
Exactly. So Marty, the GM, the director of finance, like all the major players, right? So no pressure at all. But I'm trying to be humble here, but with my skills, I was able to pull it off, and they were impressed, and well, here I am.
Nice, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned earlier about some differences between working in the hotel than kind of the banquet operations compared to a restaurant. What are some of those really big differences?
Well, in banquets, you know ahead of time what you're getting into. So if you have 100 people, let's say, more or less what you have to prep, and you can give yourself sort of a schedule of what to do when. There's always a plan leading up to the event. I say it a lot of times to our guests when I go and speak, just for fun. I say, just snap your fingers and things happen, but that's actually not. That couldn't be further away from the truth. There's a lot of thought and strategy that goes into executing these events that we have at the Battle House. And so that is that process. In a restaurant, you more or less can have an idea of what you're going to be doing that night based on reservations, but there's always the factor of, do they show up? Is there walk-ins? Is there an add-on to the table? You don't know what they're going to order. All these different variables. So in a restaurant, you're essentially taking your best guess at what's going to happen, whereas in a banquet, you can be more methodical. It's a lot more work in a banquet, but it's more scientific as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We've done huge events at the Battle House we can handle. We have the tools and everything to handle up small groups up to about 20 to we've done receptions for 1,000 before. So a lot of work goes into those, but we're more than able to handle it at the hotel.
Before we move on to the food at the Battle House and some of the restaurants, I did want to ask you too. I don't think we have a whole lot of people that have been on the podcast that have gone to culinary school. 40. I think we've almost 40 guests. I think we've had on the podcast, but like I said, not a lot of them go to culinary school. So, what would you say is how would you recommend culinary school to people who may be aspiring to be in this industry?
That's a very interesting question, and I kind of caution myself when I'm looking at resumes right now, because culinary school is great. I'm not going to take that away from anybody who wants to go. But just like most things in the world, there are good programs and there are bad programs. And I would say over the last, 10, 15, maybe 20 years even, there's been a spike in interest in going to culinary school. Because of that, they're popping up everywhere, and it seems like some of them that, aren't, let's say, state-related, they're private, organizations, businesses that are trying to put out educations out there. Sometimes those programs pack them in just to make the money, and the quality of the curriculum is not great. So I'd say be careful with that. But anyway, looking at resumes, I think a culinary education or a degree is a great foundation, but it always is almost more admirable to have those who have put time into the industry. So there's the school of hard knocks, or the school of the streets, whatever you want to call it. But that combined with a good foundation is sort of the magic formula, because real world experience kind of speaks volumes.
Yeah, you got to have it, right?
You do. Culinary, and I'm kind of talking about how I was after culinary school. I was this confident kid. I thought I was going to take on the world. Knew everything out of school. Like, that's just how you feel once you graduate. You think you have this edge on everyone. But then there's guys that haven't been to culinary school that have been cooking 10, 15 years, learning as they go, and they cook circles around you.
Right.
There's a lot to said also about you learn how to work within the industry. Culinary school gives you the technique and the methods and all that, but the grit and the work ethic, some people are born with that, but others pick it up out in the industry, and without that, that foundation is only going to get you so far.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's good. All right, let's talk some food.
Sure.
Joe Cain Cafe. What makes the pizza so dang good at Joe Cain Cafe?
So I think it's just a good, solid bar pie. And when I say pie, I mean pizza, of course. We're not the pizzeria that's flinging the dough in the air, but we use a good, thin cracker crust that gets put into a 600-degree oven, and you get that light, crispy kind of crust that comes out, and it's just simple. It's a good lunch pie. It's a good, like I said, bar pie if you're downtown enjoying the weekend, having some drinks with friends, or if you're on, say, the parade route, which we are right there on the corner. Mardi Gras is always a big draw for us, and it's really convenient, fun, easy to drop in right before the parade, get you a pizza, and then once it rolls by, go out and get your beads and then come back in.
I can't tell you how many families I know that do exactly that. They
Absolutely.
Stand right outside, right there at Royal and St. Francis, and the family we eat Joe Cain pizza, and right before the parade comes by. So that's definitely
absolutely that's
a solid move.
Not only are we Joe Cain Cafe, namesake, but again, it's just really easy on the parade right there in front. You don't have to find a balcony somewhere. Yep. We're just right there, and
go in and get a cocktail as well.
It's always a good time. Yes, nice, fresh handmade cocktails. We don't use any, bottled mixers or anything like that. The bartenders are crafting these things by hand, and they come up with really elaborate, inventive and creative cocktails that are seasonal. So that's fun too.
Yeah. Another dish I like there is y'all's gumbo, and it's unique.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a seafood gumbo, but a chicken and Connect sausage gumbo.
Oh yeah, so we used chicken thigh meat, which shreds really nicely, and I always love it when you get a soup that has the shredded meat in it, or like chicken, for example. And of course, you got to use that Conecuh sausage. That local Conecuh sausage has a unique flavor. I'm from Dallas, Texas. Never heard of Conecuh until I got here. But once you had a taste, you're addicted, and it adds just so much flavoring to a lot of dishes. But yes, our gumbo is shredded chicken and Conecuh and no okra.
Right.
We don't use the okra.
Why is that?
That's another story for another time. But we feel like the texture without it is fine, and okra has its place, but not in our gumbo.
Yeah.
But it's something that we of course make in-house, and the process takes about 4 to 5 hours. So it's definitely made with love, and it's simmered down just to the right consistency. We put just the right amount of spices in there, not too hot, not too spicy. If you wanted to add your favorite hot sauce to it, that's fine. We welcome that, but it's just got good flavor right off the bat.
Yeah. Well, any other sleepers on that menu? Anything else that's like a bestseller?
So what's interesting is Cain is again an interesting cafe to build on. So we cater mostly during the week, I should say, to the RSA Tower. So people that work in the RSA Tower, they come down, enjoy a nice lunch really quick on site, and go back up and continue on their day. We also serve our hotel guests, of course, which are coming from all over. And then there's a component of locals who work downtown and come down to Cain to eat. So there's a lot of different clientele, if you will, to balance their different needs and wants during the day. So Cain has different identities depending on what time of day you're eating.
Yeah.
So with that said, it's been really hard in the past to zero in on a menu that is just satisfactory to everybody. And I think I may have cracked the code. And so I've been working on it for a while, but I have new menus that I want to put out very soon in Cain. Traditionally, we have done predominantly like a lunch menu that's been all day. So you have really good, homemade soups and gumbo and the pizza, of course, and we have really good sandwiches. So our sandwiches are all done in-house, meaning that we're actually roasting the turkey, slicing it ourselves. Everything's fresh. But that menu has been carried out all day. If you think about it, we have hotel guests that come in, and they may not necessarily want lunch items for dinner. So I'll be introducing a dinner exclusive menu to Cain here pretty soon.
All right, sounds good.
In addition to updating the lunch menu as well. So they'll still have the same sort of theme, but be also very different in their offering. Some more entrees at night, more elevated and different sandwiches during the day. Don't worry, folks. The gumbo is not leaving. It will stay. And also, I know those of you out there love your turkey clubs. That's going to be there too. Don't worry.
All right, looking forward to that. A favorite of mine there that I've just kind of recently stumbled upon were the chess bars. Mm-hmm. And I stumbled upon them at the Food and Folly event last year, mm-hmm. where y'all had a booth set up and were serving them. And I was like, I think I went back 2 or 3 times because, those things are legit good. Now, all right, tell me about, I don't even know if a lot of people know what a chess bar is.
So I wrestled with what to actually call it because it's known by a couple of different things depending on your regionality. But if you go to New Orleans, it's called the ooey gooey butter cake.
Okay.
Is what it is. And it's just simply a little bit underdone vanilla cake with a lot of butter in it. So part of it's gooey in the center, but then the crust is nice and crispy on the outside, so you get a little bit of the crunch, and then with the gooey, buttery center, it's pretty simple to make. I think in different areas it's called chess bars. Mobile, we like to kind of separate ourselves from New Orleans, so that hence the name. But call it what you will, it's delicious.
Yes, it is so dang good. I know when I found out about it, I mean, it was one of those things like, all right, we got to get this on the food tour somehow. So, toward the end of last year and then beginning of this year, I know we've had several of our tour guests have experienced the chess bars, and it's received great reviews.
Yeah, thank you for highlighting that. Also, to note, the desserts to Joe Cain are actually somewhat of a recent addition. This idea actually comes from my wife, but she was like, king cake is so good, but everywhere has it just only during Mardi Gras. Why don't you do it all year round? I'm like, well, hon, that's actually a wonderful idea. And so now at Joe Cain, throughout the year, you'll have king cake.
All right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, I won't tell that to some of the purists, who say that you can't eat it outside of the season, but we'll just leave it, secret between the podcast listeners here.
Well, look, I'm from Dallas, so I may not subscribe to that, but I know that there are those out there who would enjoy king cake all year, so you're welcome.
Yeah, I like that. All right, what about the Trellis Room? So I know it's traditionally been an Italian restaurant, but y'all add like a Gulf Coast flavor to it. So talk about that.
I love the Trellis Room. It's I'll admit, a little bit my baby. So it just encapsulates kind of my whole theory about cooking and what food should be, and I've sort of made the menu based on just what I want to eat personally. But if you think about it, Italian cuisine is all about using the best possible ingredients, layering flavors, but the presentation is usually just pretty simple, or the list of ingredients is pretty simple. It doesn't, dishes have maybe 3 to 5 ingredients max, whereas, some more known classic French dishes, for example, have 20 to 25 ingredients, whatever the number is. But Italian cuisine is just very, very simple visually, but the complexity and what makes it so good is what happens on the back end. So again, layering of flavors, freshest ingredients, once you put those two things together, you really can't go wrong. And so I feel that Trellis is really a shining example of just that. And you mentioned Gulf Coast seafood. So we have the fortune of being right here pretty close to the water, where we have an abundance of great seafood to choose from. And so I would be remiss if I didn't incorporate into that somehow. And that's, not only in Trellis, but that's throughout all of our menus. We kind of use, what's available in our areas, and why wouldn't you? Get me back on track.
Yeah. I think, certainly the pastas are always a popular dish there. Well, what are some other unique dishes there at the Trellis Room?
So we have been having some tremendous success with one of our newer dishes of late. I call it a smoky braised short rib.
Okay.
And so short rib is nothing crazy. That a lot of restaurants in town have short rib. But I have taken the short rib and we actually smoke it as part of the process. So your short rib is picking up all this good hickory smoke. Maybe that's a nod to my Texas roots.
I like that.
I'm not sure, but so you get this beautiful, like, slow cooked and tender short rib when it comes out to the table, and then as you're smelling it and the plate hits the table, that hickory smoke is hitting your nose, and you're like, wow, that's a little bit different. And we put it over some nice cheesy polenta. Mobile might call them grits.
Yeah.
Polenta is just, fancy grits with really good mozzarella cheese and some good Italian herbs in there. And the short rib sits atop that, and then we also use the braising liquid of the short rib to kind of sauce it up and make it all juicy. and then that gets served with some broccolini on the side, and it's just a really nice combo of food. It's hearty for sure.
That sounds good.
So you gotta come hungry.
Yeah, that's my kind of dish.
You'll be satisfied for sure.
And I'm guessing y'all probably have a pretty extensive wine list there too, right?
We do, and that's kind of, if we're talking about sleeper stuff or things that are unknown. Gary Smith, our director of outlets or director of restaurants there, he has curated this list that's very, very extensive. So if you go, we have on the back of our menu, we have kind of our staples for Italian wine, but there's also a request to, if you have some more inquiries, we have a whole cellar of incredible Italian wines to pick from. And this is something that's very much interested me since I've started working there. Coming up through various restaurants, culinary school, you typically learn about, French wine, American wine. You don't really, you kind of graze over the old world stuff. And since coming to Trellis Room and having different vendors come in and kind of talk to the team and sample different wines, you learn that Italian wines, old world wines, are just different than, what we typically experience. And so Italian wines are made to be enjoyed with food for the most part. And so the opportunity for pairings and complimentary tastings is just incredible.
Yeah.
And so I'll use that opportunity to talk about, if you didn't know, every quarter or so, we also do a wine dinner. It's reservation only, but and that goes out through all of our social media and whatnot. But it's typically a 6-course dinner that pairs with a different Italian wine for each course. We have the wine distributor come out and do a little little education on the wines, right. And then we pair it with a dish that's Italian in nature and talk about why and all that. And people just have a great time.
Yeah.
They not only do you get to eat and drink a lot, so that's fun, but you also learn something as well. That's one of the special things that we do that I really enjoy. It's a little bit, it's a time to do something a little bit different, experiment, and just have a lot of fun interacting with our guests.
That sounds good. What do you know the next date for that? Put you on the spot.
Actually, yes. We just had a tasting recently, and I think we're looking at maybe off a day or two, but I think we're looking at April 16th.
Okay.
That's the next one.
All right.
So pay your taxes.
Yeah.
And then come enjoy some good food and drink
right.
at the Trellis Room.
Yep, mm-hmm. That's right. I like that. And I guess another, you can free valet, right? If you're eating at the Trellis Room, is that right?
Absolutely, and we can't stress that enough. Parking downtown is hard enough.
Yeah.
So we don't want to burden you with that. We have valet right at the front door. Just tell them you're going to the Trellis Room, and we'll validate it.
Okay.
Easy enough.
Yeah, man, that's a great perk right there.
Mm-hmm.
And really, you think about the Trellis Room, you think about fine dining, but it's really even not that expensive either. Compared to maybe some other fine dining restaurants in Mobile too.
I'm really glad you said that, because we actually put quite a bit of effort into giving that value back to the people. So kind of like we were talking about with Cain, there's a challenge of appealing to your different clientele. And Trellis is a little bit the same story. Of course, it's a hotel restaurant, but that's really sort of a bad word these days, or a bad phrase these days, because hotel restaurants are associated with menus that don't have identity, that are a little bit price gouged, and are made to be convenient amenities for the hotel guest. Yes, we want to be convenient to our hotel guests. We want them to have great dining right there on spots. They don't have to venture out if they don't want to. But also, we understand that the Battle House is an institution, it's an icon, and it belongs to Mobile as well.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone in town that I've talked to has a Battle House story, and we want to continue that. So we know that we have good events. We make it really easy for you. You can come down to the parades and enjoy Cain. But also, we want you to come enjoy the Trellis Room as well. So our price points are not hotel prices, if that makes sense. They're more designed for the locals. So we want you to come in and have a weekday meal or have your special occasion meal, whatever it may be. One of my favorite comments of late that we see on Google and Open Table is the Trellis Room is a hidden gem. This is what a treasure. I didn't know they had this. Love all those comments, but what I'd like to see is that hidden part be kind of removed. And
that's right.
This was great. This was fantastic. Great value, great price, great experience. So that's kind of our goal for sure.
Yeah, I hope after this episode that changes. Hope that changes too. And also, I do want to ask you about the Sunday brunch. I do a Sunday brunch every week as well. What's some of the menu items there?
We brought back the brunch. It's been about a little over a year now, and it's had tremendous success. Again, mostly from locals. So thanks for visiting if you've been. So brunch is always kind of that nondescript meal period that chefs use to kind of get rid of the week's, prep or whatever. We take that to mean, okay, this is a time that locals can come and enjoy their Sunday before they get on with their busy weeks. Or if we do a lot of weddings, it's the last chance for the wedding party and the families to come and gather and enjoy each other before they go back to their lives, whatever that may be. So brunch is special. Again, it's we kind of stay away from the term fine dining. It's definitely elevated, but it's not stuffy. It's very easy, casual, come as you are. The Trellis Room is beautiful. It's a nice atmosphere to be in, but it's more fun. It's not your stuck up kind of experience anymore. But anyway, on the menu, we've got things like king cake French toast, which has been tremendously popular. So trying to weave that king cake in as much as I can, I guess. We also have our fried oyster Benedicts, crab cake Benedicts, just really good solid burger, which I think is important to have on a Sunday.
Yeah, in Mobile especially.
But that's a menu that we're looking to kind of tweak a little bit now too. That it's been out there for a minute and kind of get something fresh for the season and up it a little bit too. So more to come on that.
Yeah, all right, that sounds good, man. Mm-hmm. All right, you got me want to come out there for sure. So our next segment of the podcast is called Meat and Three. So we've already gotten into the meat of the podcast. Now I got 3 questions for you, and I want just get your thoughts. What's some of your favorite places in Mobile that you like to eat when you're not at work?
I have been. I knew this question was coming, and I have struggled with coming up with an answer. But here's the truth. So the fact is, I definitely put in a lot of hours at the kitchen. It's a big operation. It's a big job, and truthfully, if I want to have a good meal, it's going to be at Casa de Tony.
Okay.
But if we ever feel like going out to eat, which by the way, I'm sure you hear this all the time in your operation, but things are expensive these days, and there's no getting around it. The last thing that I really want to do is go out and have a mediocre experience, but fork over all this cap. Nobody wants to do that. So we're real careful about where we go to experience things. But I'm always on the hunt for the I don't know what you would call it, like the micro local experience. So I'm not necessarily looking for a specific cuisine to go eat, but that one good item, kind of like what you do with your food tour is you kind of pick out a little sample that represents the restaurant and give people a taste so they can make that judgment if they want to go back or not, or just get a sense of the palate of Mobile. So I'm looking for those little things. On the drive over here, I was thinking about Noja is one of our favorite places, and something that's been a long time staple there that they have is they have a buttered popcorn ice cream with a ginger donut. I know most of Mobile has probably experienced that at this point, but that's a winner.
That's good stuff. Hope
they never get rid of that. There is, and forgive me for not knowing the name, maybe we can insert it in post, but there's an Indian place that's attached to a market on just off of Airport.
Seven Spice?
Not Seven Spice. That's a little more off the path.
Okay.
I'll have to look it up.
Biryani Pot?
Yes.
Yep.
Good job.
Yep.
Incredible authentic food. They have a mango lassi there, which is one of my favorite drinks. So if I can ever get that, that's a good time. But it's incredible experience there.
Oh, that was going to be my second question. Was like under the radar kind of place, but I think that might be it right there.
That's the definition of under the radar.
Yeah, it is.
Because it's not terribly visible, but
and they got a lunch buffet on the weekdays.
Yep, the family is there, and it's 100% authentic. And no shortcuts. It's really good stuff. Like we used to go to Pot of Pho all the time and just get the soup. Kind of a drive for us at this point, but
right?
That's okay. What else is out there? I'm always on the hunt for the best pie in town, pizza that is.
Yeah.
Jury's still out, but
yeah. Have you been to O'Daly's?
O'Daly's.
Have you had their pizza?
Have not.
All right, that's an under the radar one for sure.
That's what we're doing.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. The 504 pizza.
Okay.
At O'Daly's. Yep.
That'll go on the list for sure.
Yep. Yeah, you'll like that one.
Okay.
All right, my third question for you. Sorry, so you've done a lot of traveling. You lived in Texas, and like I said, you've been to Orlando. Like, what are some other food towns out there that you've enjoyed in some of your travels?
Ooh, very nice. I had the pleasure of with my wife. She is always going to market looking for new vendors for her store and whatnot. But she allowed me to tag along to New York one time, and I had not previously been. And if you've ever been to New York, there's good restaurants on every single block. Yeah. You can pretty much just walk into one and have a good experience. And that was an incredible experience. And I would say also just growing up in Dallas. Dallas actually per capita has more restaurants than New York. Not
really,
not physically more, but per volume, and that just means that the competition is stiff, and you've really got to be good out there.
No doubt.
So, really great stuff. I hope it's still there, but there's this restaurant in Dallas called Neighborhood Services. Not that you're doing a food tour out there, but just. So their whole staff is ex-managers of different venues that have decided they don't like the industry, so they're just going to go and do their own thing. And it's a little bit of a speakeasy, a little underground, but it's an amazing experience.
That's a pretty cool concept.
Mm-hmm.
All right, my last segment of the show is called Chris's Dishes, and that's where I talk about the best dish that I've had lately, and I'll turn it over to you if you've got a dish you've had. We'll shout that out too, but mine is over in Fairhope, Provision, and I love going over to Provision. It's a great coffee place, but they've also got some food items, a lunch menu, and the best thing that I've had over there is the Conecuh Cuban po' boy.
Oh man, that sounds delicious.
And it is. It's fine. It's it's a grilled po' boy bun, so it's the perfect bun. And of course, it's got the pork and Conecuh sausage with it as well. And the ham, the Wickles pickles is what they have for the pickles on that. So it's good. A little mustard sauce on top. Mm-hmm. Love that. So that's one of my go-to dishes for sure when I'm over at Provision, when I'm over hanging out in Fairhope, taking care of tour stuff over there. That's one of my dishes for sure. That's
your little sneak spot. You go treat yourself kind of thing.
What about you? You had any dishes lately that you want to?
Oh man,
share?
I would probably make enemies out there.
What about at Casa de Tony?
This week we've eaten pretty well, and I just made some classic things at home. But I made some just straight up beef stroganoff, and that was a little slice of childhood right there.
Oh yeah.
But whenever we really want to eat well, I just stay at home because
Yeah, you can do it right.
I got the skills.
That's a true chef talking right there.
But I really want to give you an answer on that. I just don't.
No, you gave it to me. You gave it to me.
Blank.
Yeah, hey, we've had several people who have given some at home dishes there, and nothing wrong with that too. Well, Tony, man, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. It's been a good episode.
Thank you, Chris. That was great to be here, and again, I thank you so much for the work you do.
Yeah.
It's quite a concept, and I hope more people come and experience it. It's a great thing.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, and I was thinking about that on this episode, or just here while we've been talking, that on the food tour, I know like we've had the gumbo before, we've had the chess bars, like I mentioned, we've done the French toast king cake. So I mean, I can't think of very many places in Mobile where we've had like multiple dishes on our tour, kind of like we have with y'all. So that's hats off to y'all.
Thank you very much. You ever do any night tours?
Thursday nights we do some.
Okay.
Yeah. You got something maybe in an idea for us?
Maybe we need to try that short rib.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. All right. I like that. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on again. Great job, and appreciate everybody listening to the Port City Plate podcast. And we'll catch you on the next episode.